Jazz today has so many different forms since it started. And so my music, I like to think of myself as a creative musician, creative composer. That having a broad title like that allows me to do what I want to do. And that is really to be my true Black self, the woman, the Blackness. It doesn't put me in a box. And therefore, I can venture out into electronics or experimenting with hip hop. I can utilize jazz chord progressions and melodies. Um, I can have tons of improvisation at my shows. And so my whole band is just free to create. So that's how I describe it. Those artists were really, what I really liked about all of them is that they were being themselves. Um, Even Sun Ra with his duality, um, they were being themselves, their authentic selves, and that is what I truly desire. I remember just being a little girl and just wanting to be free, wanting to explore and look at different ways to do things. And so with a lot of those artists, especially Sun Ra, Herbie Hancock is another favorite of mine, Alice Coltrane. um, they were just being influenced by music they like, and they were putting it all into their pot, and they weren't allowing critics or how we can look at critics as our gatekeepers. They weren't allowing those folks to say what they were, because you'll see something in jazz fusion that happens around the time that jazz fusion started to appear. Record labels, because those jazz fusion artists were jazz artists before, the record labels were still categorizing it as jazz. But around that time, though, in the late 60s, jazz music and the audience started to diminish. And so when Herbie Hancock or Miles Davis came out with their projects, they weren't always able to capture the audience because, again, jazz was not as popular at that time. So the categories actually, they can harm us, especially if we're trying to come out with new music. But also, I'll add too, like, we're artists, and so we change. We are constantly changing. The world around us is changing. And so it allows us to just be free in that moment and not have to say, well, I started off as a bebop player or smooth jazz, and I have to stay there. Having a broader term allows us to just continue to evolve. Yeah, I would say it's the expression of Black identity in the present while acknowledging the past, but hoping for a better future. So, and in that hope to me is an action. Is more of an action verb. It's more about embodying the practice of acknowledging our past and living in the current, the present, and looking at where we want to be. We have to embody those three elements in order for us to, I guess Sun Ra would probably say, for us to be in all three at the same time. So, so yeah, I actually I dig a lot of things that Sun Ra said, and I kind of get them, you know. It wasn't his music for me. It was his philosophies that that did it for me. I think he is considered the father because he was the most expressive and embracing this. Well, again, as you said, he didn't even know, like, the term Afrofuturism wasn't happening back then, right? But for what he thought he was doing at the time, he was most verbal about it. He was the person who was really putting in action. He's actually talking about things that most of us would shy away from when we're talking in the public. Um, None of us want to talk about space aliens or seeing spaceships or how Black people, we need to just take over our own planet, right? You're gonna be criticized. You're gonna be ridiculed if you're openly talking about these things, especially back then. And so he just had a bunch of courage, I assume, courage and bravery. And I think he just believed. He really believed in what he was talking about. So I think that's why a lot of times we look at Sun Ra as being kind of like the father of Afrofuturism. I do believe Afrofuturism, if we're talking about living in the present, acknowledging the past, but hoping for a better future, I would assume that most enslaved individuals were seeking that. Like a lot of those field songs and spirituals that they sang was about that hope. And so I would say that it probably started a very long time ago. But yeah, he was the one who put on the spacesuits, though. And well, I love technology. I'm very excited about it. Um, I only think that it's happening too fast. That's it. That kind of just being honest, it worries me a little bit when it comes to not music technology, but AI technology. When we're talking about policing our society, and I'm seeing on social media robot dogs or robots that have guns, and we're not really. It's like we're developing the technology, but we have to question who's making it, number one, but also, can we just slow down and take time out to see where are the disadvantages? Where are those things going to happen? What problems could arise if we just throw these things out into the world, into society without testing them out? Um, it's a scary thing. At the same time, I think that I advocate for young people, young Black people getting into technology. Um, I'm doing a workshop in June next month where I'm teaching young girls how to put together headphones. But the idea is to show them electronics so that they understand that they can build half of the things that we consume. And so we need to be in those spaces. And when I was in grad school, I didn't see enough of us. I was the only one in my program. And so it scares me that we're not in those spaces in the time that they're being developed, because someone's got to say, hold on, I don't think you're thinking about this one thing that could happen if this thing screws up, you know?